I wasn't trying to solve world hunger or resolve the conflict in the Middle East. I was trying to do something much more important, at least for me. I was trying to figure out why, or rather, how love had left our marriage. I thought it would be a simple task to figure out how or why and just turn things around so things could be good again. That's what my young daughter Kim says when my wife puts a bandage on a cut or scratch. But it would take more than a bandage with little red balls on it to make things feel good again between my wife Sue and me. However, I was going to do my best. I didn't want to join the statistic that 1 in 2 married couples divorce, but it looked like we were headed in that direction. Well, if only I could help. At first glance, we were a typical couple, Ozzy and Harriet. We had been married for almost 11 years and had 2 children. Our family consisted of 6-year-old Kim, 8-year-old Danny, and a 2-year-old golden retriever named Rusty. We live in a Mac mansion, as I call our huge box house that Sue just had to have, and to my dismay, we have a large mortgage to go along with it. Sue works at Spencer & Thomas, a large accounting firm based in Atlanta, and was promoted to junior partner last January. She's pretty darn smart and a workaholic, if I'm not following her too closely. Me? I do custom motorcycle and car painting. My work isn't as seasonal as Sue's, but it's usually feast or famine. Often on weekends, I pitch a tent at a car or bike show and pick up work that way. Most of the time, word of mouth seems to bring in most of my new business. When one of my paint jobs takes a trophy at a show, everyone always wants to know who did it. The winner directs them in my direction or gives them one of my business cards. So, I send out 1 million painted business cards a year, and while they are not cheap, they are well worth the cost. Shortly after Danny was born, we came to the realization that Sue would be the primary breadwinner in our family. She had a higher earning potential, and economically it was simply advantageous for me to be home more often with the children while she developed her career. Did it hurt my pride or make me feel like a less worthy man? Hell no. At that point, I only wished that Sue could earn even more. When our second daughter, Kim, was born, I took on a bunch more responsibilities, especially when tax time came around. I became head cook and bottle washer, not to mention maid and school mom. When the kids went to school, I always found time to drive them, and soon found myself picking up a few more neighborhood kids. I didn't mind at all. I simply changed the hours of operation of my business to open a half hour later, and the deed was done. From my perspective, marriage is a partnership, and if both parties do their part, it runs like a well-oiled clock, or at least it should. Don't get me wrong, Sue worked hard, especially after her promotion. She usually worked from 7:30 in the morning and almost never came home before 6:30 in the evening. Often I was feeding the kids and putting them to bed when she showed up at the door after 7 or even 8 in the evening. With a glass of wine and a kiss, I would warn her about dinner and sit with her while she ate. Afterward, I would put the kids to bed while she tucked in. I did not look at myself as a martyr. That is what 2 people who love each other do in marriage. Did we have sex all the time? No way. Hell, show me a guy who says he's had enough and I'll show you a liar. If a guy has sex 2 or 3 times a week, he'd like to have it 4 times. A guy getting it 5 times a week will still be thinking about how he'd like to do it once a day. And the guy getting it 7 times a week? Well, we both know that's a fantasy and that doesn't happen in the real world, especially for a couple with young kids. I'm just saying, be grateful for what you get and take advantage of it when the opportunity arises. So our humble life continued. Our relationship became strained and out of control starting the night Sue got her promotion. It's been a year since that evening and I'm still angry about her attitude towards me since that evening. I feel like I am being taken for granted. It's like she thinks she's above everyone else, and the fact that I'm married to a lowly working man is now almost beneath her dignity. If it weren't for my 2 kids, I'd probably say to hell with it, but I haven't gotten to that point yet. Coming back from a concert in Atlanta, I decide I'm going to give it one last try because I know there's still something salvageable if we both work at it. I'm starting to remember the first time we said yes to each other. I was 22 and she was 23 and a half. I always told her she robbed the cradle when she married me. She had graduated from college and worked for an accounting firm in the city. I, on the other hand, had my own car and motorcycle painting business. I worked out of my parents' detached garage, or what used to be their garage. I knew from the beginning that I wasn't college eligible, so I took every automotive painting course the technical college offered. I learned not only standard painting techniques, but also the art of airbrushing. I was living on welfare at the time, but was quite happy with my life. I loved going to car and motorcycle shows because there were always great cars, and women who could stop traffic. That's where I met Sue. She was riding with a guy named Kenny who was showing off his car at a regional event. For him that day, it was all about the car. Sue was there to support him, because isn't that what girlfriends do? However, as the show was getting ready to start and he was polishing and sanding the car like a madman, Sue was nothing more than an extraneous thought or nuisance. I didn't do her boyfriend's paint job, but I did paint 2 other cars that I thought had a good chance of winning. I was standing back from all the craziness, watching what was going on, when she approached me. "Boys and their toys," she said louder than usual, sucking on some kind of soda. "Pardon me? Kids, look at them. They're spending thousands of dollars on what? On a nice paint job that will never see the light of day outside of one of these swap meets." I corrected her. "Car shows, they're called car shows. It doesn't matter. It's just not practical, that's all. If you're not interested in cars, what are you doing here? See that greenish-colored Chevy over there? That's my boyfriend's. We drove him down here for his custom truck. Boys and their toys, I'll never understand that. And let me guess, he doesn't treat you half as well as he treats his car, right? If he paid me even 1/10 of the time he spends polishing his car, I'd be the happiest woman on earth. So today I'm here to support my man, at least that's what he told me I was doing here." "What time is this all going to end?" she asked, glancing at her watch. "Judging will begin in about an hour and will probably take at least 2.5 hours, judging by the number of cars involved. Then there'll be a vote count. Heck, you should be out of here in about 4 hours, give or take a half hour." "You're kidding me, aren't you?" "Sorry," replied I. She pulled out her phone, dialed a number and started yelling into it. "He told me in a couple hours. No way in hell I'm going to wait here all day, even if he's going to take first place. For your information, he's not going to take the top spot either." "How do you know that? Are you one of the judges or something?" "No, but I painted 2 cars at the competition that looked much better than his," I smiled, complimenting her. She didn't look impressed. "And pray tell, how much did you charge to paint these cars?" 4 or 5,000, I replied. "Every one?" She sounded a little more impressed now. "Yes, every one. Why are you so surprised? I even gave them a 10% discount if they hook up my store and hand out my cards if they win. Like I said, I'll never understand boys and their toys." She finished her last sip and put her big sunglasses on the top of her head, showing me her big brown eyes. With a look of boredom and disgust, she took the glasses off, tied her light brown hair into a ponytail and put the glasses back in her hair. "I'm Steve Moore, by the way," I said, extending my hand. "Sue Williams," she replied, extending her hand to me for a weak handshake. "Well, I need to find my goofball boyfriend and tell him I'm going to the mall while he does his man stuff. I'll be back to see how he's doing, I think I owe him that much. Maybe I'll see him again. Here, take one of my cards." I pulled one from my top pocket and held it out to her. "When he loses to me, you can give him the card and tell him I predicted it. Maybe he'll want me to repaint the car for him." Sue looked at the card front and back and then slipped it into the back pocket of her jeans. "Well, I guess I'll see you at the trophy presentation." With a quiet sigh, she left. Not a badass, but her breasts were too small for my taste. I sort of chuckled to myself as I watched her walk away, thinking about how she looked better walking away than approaching me. Cute. Nice face and killer ass. If she was a guy, they'd say she looked like a tall glass of water because she must have been 110 pounds and at least 5 feet 8 inches tall, which was mostly legs. It was a long, hot afternoon. There weren't many clouds in the sky, and by the end of the day my shirt was sticking to me. It was wet with sweat. I could feel trickles of sweat running down the sides of my face and down the center of my back. I took off my red cap, wiped my forehead with the sleeve of my t-shirt and grinned, thinking about what would happen if a summer downpour came through. Sue was right, most of these cars had never seen the light of day. They were parked in luxury trailers or garages, and only at events like this one did they see sunlight. There must be over $1 million worth of cars here, I thought as I looked around the 8 rows of show cars. Someday I'd like to have a custom-built car, one that people would look at me as I drove by. Would I drive it every day? Of course you would. What's the point of having something like that if no one will ever see it? I didn't need a Chinese doll in a glass display case, rather something that would attract attention, a magnet for girls, that's what I needed. I didn't have a steady girlfriend at the moment, nor was I looking for one. But looking at some of the women here, I wouldn't want one either, they're too demanding. The guys had brought them here in short hot pants and tiny tops so they could stand next to their car and attract a crowd. As I looked back at the 1968 Chevy, I noticed that Sue wasn't back yet. Her boyfriend was glancing at his watch now and then, but he didn't look too happy either. Oh well, Sue would be the least of his worries if he didn't show up first, at least I hoped he didn't. After the judging and tallying of votes was completed, the presentations began. There were 4 classes with the winners vying for the title of Best in Show. One of my cars made it into the top 4 along with Sue's boyfriend's car and 2 others that looked very sexy to say the least. Why they purposely drag out these award ceremonies, I don't know, because by this time everyone was hot, sweaty, and wanted to get it over with. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Sue come back and stand next to her boyfriend. "Let's get on with it!" shouted someone in the crowd, and everyone nodded in approval. A great 1964 Ford truck with a metallic red apple took 4th place. I knew the guy who painted it, and although he was smiling, I know exactly how he felt inside. A 2008 Corvette painted black and red took 3rd place. I was sure it would qualify for 1st or 2nd place. That left Sue's boyfriend's green Chevy and my buddy's canary yellow and crimson and gold Chrysler 300. As the tension built, I could see the excitement on the faces of both owners. When my buddy's car won, I watched as he jumped around it like a damn lunatic and a scowl appeared on Kenny's face. The 1st and 2nd place trophies were more than I needed, but the 1st place check was what my buddy valued most. He found me, gave me a big hug, and walked up on stage to salute while everyone clapped and gathered around his car. I was pumped and knew I would end up getting at least 1 or 2 jobs at this show. I was standing next to my buddy's car, and a few guys started talking to me about cars they might be interested in painting. Sue's guy didn't take losing very well, he was kicking his feet on the ground, cursing to himself. Although I couldn't hear what he was saying, judging by the look on his face, nothing good. I saw Sue utter the words, "It's just a damn car show," just before he pounced on her. Then I saw Sue hold out my business card to him and watch as he tore it into a million pieces and tossed it back to her. With a wave of her hands, she handed it back to him. Now they were both starting to make a scene. I considered going to help her, but decided it was none of my business. I was talking to a guy about a 2006 Honda he wanted to paint, and then I felt a hand on my shoulder. It was Sue. "Do you mind if I stand here with you? My boyfriend is being a total asshole, and I don't want to be around him right now." "No problem, I think he's a little mad about losing." When I told him about what you told me and handed him your card, he said it was already decided. I probably shouldn't have told him it wasn't the end of the world and that there would be other shows. Then he tore up your card and threw it at me. "Okay, I'll be your lord and protector," I told her, going back to talking to the guy about his Honda and giving her an approximate price. I didn't notice her hugging me, nor did I hear her boyfriend storm over to where we were standing. But the guy I was talking to definitely saw and heard. His eyes widened and he took 2 steps back. "Sue, come on, we're getting out of here," Kenny growled. "You leave and I'll find my own way home." I don't think I want to be around a man who can't control his temper or talk to me the way you do. I think he wanted to hit her, and probably would have if I hadn't been there. I saw him clench his fists and get even angrier. Then I pushed Sue behind me. I felt like all the blood vessels and veins in his face were about to burst through his skin as they went from cherry red to dark purple. I just stared at him, waiting for what I thought was going to happen next. I was a full 4 inches shorter and probably 40 pounds lighter than Kenny. I was already expecting to get my ass kicked when suddenly he surprised me. "Leave that bitch alone, she's not worth the trouble," he shouted to me as he headed back to his car. I breathed a sigh of relief, my body relaxed, and the sweat stopped flowing from every pore in my body. "Boys and their toys," she muttered again as she watched him pull away. "Well, now you have to give me a ride home, are you done yet?" she asked, standing with her arms crossed in front of her and looking at me through her large sunglasses. I was beginning to understand how Kenny was feeling right now. I was thankful I didn't have to kick ass over this broad. "Would you give me a minute? I'm trying to find some things to do," I told her, starting to get a little annoyed with her. "Okay, I'll wait over there." She pointed to the bleachers next to the stage. "When you're ready to leave, just let me know." She turned her back and walked away. I was done in a little over half an hour. I'd handed out probably 100 postcards and was already feeling pretty good when I remembered Sue. "Are you ready yet?" I said with a hint of a smile. "I was ready to leave at 10 in the morning," she answered me. We walked up to the parking lot and got into my 2004 Chevy S10 pickup. It had 100,000 miles on it, needed a paint job, but most of all a good wash. "You paint cars like this," pointing to a car leaving the exhibition, "and drive something like this?" "It's my work truck, and if you don't like riding in it, you can always walk home." I didn't say I was above it, I just thought you'd be riding something hot to show off your work. Right now I can't afford any of my own paint jobs, nor do I want to. I put most of my money back into my business, so I don't owe anyone anything. "That's very smart. I think when things are slow, you can wait out the storm." "Exactly, and since I still live at home, my expenses are minimal. However, I'm eyeing a small place, and in about 2 or 3 years I'll be able to afford it. In the meantime, I'm growing my business, networking with the right people, and trying to get better with every paint job." I think it surprised her a little. "Thought I was a country bumpkin with no brains in my head, huh?" She didn't say anything at first. "Okay, I thought you were just a good old country boy, sorry. You really have your life all figured out. What does your girlfriend have to say to that?" "Not really, because I don't have one right now." "Are you applying for the position?" "If so, I'm accepting applications." I gave Sue my best Paul Newman smile. I had his big baby blue eyes, but I didn't have everything else. I guess it didn't matter much to Sue because a month later we were officially girlfriend and boyfriend. Imagine that. We were one of the weirdest couples ever. A prim college accountant and a blue-collar house painter, but somehow it worked out for us. Maybe it was because I treated her like a real person and took the time to fulfill her needs. Anyway, our relationship blossomed and we started saying the L word to each other and discussing what would happen if we got married. It's probably not the best love story you've ever heard, but that's how we met and became a couple. Even though Sue had never seen the inside of a body shop, she knew the principles of running a successful business. I'd like to say I owe all of my success to hard work or even luck, but I'd be lying. Sue pushed me to expand my business and take risks I normally would never have dared to take. Some of them failed, but most of them didn't. Hell, she didn't even mind when we went on dates in my old truck. True, she demanded that my hands be clean at all times, which included getting rid of the nail polish under my fingernails when we went out, especially with her friends. "Sue, I'm a laborer. I work with my hands all day and they're dirty. I don't work in a bloody office like you do." She gave me a cold look. "Steve, you may be a worker, as you say, but you don't have to look like a worker. You're also a successful business owner, and sometimes you have to wear that hat. I'm not asking you to show off, I'm just reminding you that people will look at you very differently when you wear a coat and tie instead of a pair of ripped jeans. Your friends, not mine." That was the point. I never went to college, and most of my friends were just like me, hard-working blue-collar workers who struggled to make a living. Her friends, on the other hand, had college educations, were mostly well-off, and never messed with people like me unless they were hired for jobs that were beneath them. When we were alone together, things were completely different. We loved each other, and that was the most important thing in our lives. I loved her not for what she had, but for what she was. She wasn't perfect for me, far from it. Every once in a while she would say something that would make me cringe, but then we would look at each other and realize that in the end it didn't matter as long as we had each other. Her love was the most precious thing I had. The best thing about our wedding was the mix of haves and have-nots. Her pa rents had money and mine didn't, simple as that. They never explicitly said I wasn't good enough for their daughter, but her father tried to get me to drop the idea of expanding my painting business. I guess he figured if I went bust, his daughter would end up supporting me. So I smiled, was gracious, and did what a good husband does to keep a part of the family together I tolerated when we were together. I don't know how many times I bit my tongue listening to him talk about this or that. Are you okay? Sue asked after the usual family sit-down. I thought you were going to explode at some point. Just once I'd like to see your father get off his high horse and live like 90% of the rest of the people in the world. Steve started from scratch and built his business on his own. He just can't understand why everyone else can't do the same. When he says that most small business owners are just lazy, he really believes it. He worked 24/7 until he was successful, and now he's living off his success. He was damn lucky and had a father who gave him the first money to start his business. I'm not saying he didn't work hard, but having a father whose friends abandoned their businesses along the way didn't hurt either. If he wants to flaunt his money, let him flaunt it, he's earned that right. So what if he wants to pamper Danny and our new girl? She said, rubbing her belly. It's just his attempt to make things easier for us, that's all. Besides, having another mouth to feed will burden us even more, since I'll be out of work for about 4 months. But when I find a partner, we'll be free and won't need his money. You know I love you, don't you? That statement made all the difference to me. Now you're not playing fair. You know I would do anything in the world for you. Besides, I like keeping you pregnant. And tell me why. Tits. You've grown 2 sizes during your pregnancy and I'm loving every minute of it, I hummed as she slapped my arm. Well, you better enjoy the next 2 months, because after this baby is born, we're done. We'll have a boy and a girl. You're going to have to go back to loving my boyish figure whether you like it or not. I jutted out my lower lip in a pretend pout. And mister, no way in hell am I going to get a boob job. I love my small and lush tits that you fell in love with, remember? Big or small, I'll love you either way, I said, stroking her belly. And if you say it's over between us, I won't complain either. You're my fiancé, and I'll love you until the end of time. It was a corny phrase I heard in an old song, but I felt it fit. I was happy, we were happy, and that's all I wanted out of our marriage. 4 months after Kim was born, Sue went back to work. I think she was trying to make up for all the time she had been away the first month after she returned. Sometimes at night I wondered if she would ever come home. Kids, you're burning on both sides, you need to relax a little, I said with the care that only a caring husband and father is capable of. I don't want to be displaced from my place in the lineup. If things go the way I want them to, by the end of next year, I will claim the partnership. That, my husband, will cement our future. After that, there will be no more fighting. I didn't think we had it so bad. We didn't have everything we both wanted, but what the couple had, we had. I wasn't trying to keep up with the Joneses, hell, we already had more than 3/4 of my friends. My business wasn't a huge success yet, but it was growing every year. As I said at the beginning, I began to take on more and more responsibilities around the house and the kids, while Sue's work hours only increased. When she became a partner, they threw a big dinner in her honor. All the other partners, their wives and the office staff were invited to the dinner, and although it wasn't black tie, it was a dressy event. I wore my suit, the one and only, and Sue went out and bought a new long dress. When she came down the stairs, she looked sexier than I had seen her in years. I wanted to take her back upstairs, rip the dress off her and make love to her, which is what I told her. Calm down, cowboy, you'll get your chance when we get home tonight since mom and dad will be watching the kids. For now, let's just get there in one piece and then maybe later tonight we'll see what we can come up with, Sue said and kissed me. The company's senior partners were present, as well as staff from its regional office. It wasn't heated as everyone had only good things to say about her. Sue was only one of 3 female junior partners and I was told that she was being groomed to eventually become one of the senior partners. I think having a woman as a senior partner shows all the other firms that you are progressive and promote associates from within. It didn't hurt that her father was wealthy and connected. Dinner was great, there was an open bar and I tried not to overindulge, but it seems like I was the only one. It seems that when there is an open bar, people think they should get their money's worth. Let's just say the bartender was busy all night. Sue was bypassed and spent most of the evening talking to one or more of the senior partners. Every now and then she would cast a glance at me, apparently to make sure I wasn't too bored. I didn't have anything in common with any of them, but with one of the senior partners I struck up a conversation about cars. He was from a corporate office in Atlanta, had a show car, and was genuinely interested in what I had to say. After about 20 minutes, however, my evening went downhill. Like I said, some people shouldn't drink, or at least shouldn't get drunk. That's when their tongue takes over and their brains don't have time to pick up the words. I heard a group of junior male partners talking, and if they weren't talking so loudly and laughing at what they were saying, I probably wouldn't have paid attention to them. I guess we know who wears the pants in this family, one of them joked. I've heard he's nothing more than a maid. Takes the kids to school, does the laundry and cooking. Hell, I can't even get my wife to do all that for me, joked another. Being a gentleman, I tried to ignore them. Damn, he must be such a wuss that she dictates if and when they have sex. Now they were laughing openly and loudly. Hell, he probably puts on some flimsy thing when she comes home to entice her to give him some. But knowing that ice queen, she'd probably make him beg before she'd say no. Like I said, some people just shouldn't drink. I was standing right behind the guy who made that last comment when his friend suddenly went silent and he turned around. For your information, my wife, or ice queen as you call her, on one of her bad days can chew your ass up and spit you out. I don't think I'd mess with her. I don't think my ass is something I wanted to offer her to chew on, he teased me with a goofy grin on his face. The smile didn't last long. A knee to the groin and an uppercut to the chin and the asshole was unconscious on the floor. When his buddies saw what had happened to the asshole, they scattered. Okay, maybe I should have ignored his remarks and just walked away from the drunk. But at that moment I didn't think about the consequences of my actions, but only defended my wife's honor. However, it didn't work out that way. Sue was beside me demanding an explanation while the drunk guy's friends tried to get him to his feet. Sue, he said nasty things about you. I just couldn't let him slander you like that. Do you really think I can't take care of myself? You let that ant make a scene and ruin what was supposed to be my evening, how could you? She scolded me quietly. I want you to go and apologize to him right now, do you hear me? She was right, this was her night. Resigned to it, I walked over to where he was standing. I'm sorry I hit you, but if I hear you say one more word about my wife, you're going to be in trouble. I was right the first time, some people shouldn't drink because he smirked and said in an overly loud voice that Sue probably gives a disgusting blowjob. This time everyone around heard him. I cast a brief glance over my shoulder at Sue and checked my watch. He wasn't going to get up on his own anytime soon. After that, I walked out the doors of the banquet hall, got in our car and drove home. All the way home I knew there would be a price to pay and I thought Sue would go home with someone else to cool her down. I was sorely mistaken. Good thing I wasn't drunk and vulnerable when she got home, or she probably would have killed me. She must have yelled at me for an hour and a half, explaining in detail what my little burst of confidence had cost her. You should have heard what he said, hell, everyone should have heard it. And you want me to let it go unheeded? I'm sorry, he may be an ant, but no one talks about my wife like that. So what if everyone heard what the stupid drunkard said? Did his words hurt me in the eyes of my superiors? Not at all. But your two outbursts sure did hurt. Now everyone will be talking about the new partner's husband making a fool of himself at his wife's promotional dinner. I can hear them already. We'd like to invite you and your husband to the next dinner, but we're afraid he'll lose his temper again. That's what I'll have to face from now on. Fine, I won't go to any more of your fucking highborn dinners if I embarrass you that much. He's just damn lucky I didn't send him to the hospital. You're lucky he didn't press assault charges against you. If one of the senior partners hadn't talked to him, you'd probably be in jail by now, she yelled at me. I left and she continued to abuse me all the way to our bedroom. I guess sex has been ruled out for today, I commented lightly in a joking manner. It didn't go in vain. I slept on the couch that night. I didn't go with her to pick up the kids because I knew she was still angry and would likely have to endure her father's wrath when he found out what I had done. I couldn't win no matter what I did. That's where our free fall began. From that evening on, the gap began to widen. She was right, she was invited to dinners and I wasn't, at least that's what she told me. Sue started working longer and longer hours, and when I complained, she said, if it weren't for her paycheck, what would we live on? On mine? It was always said in a condescending tone. I guess she was right. From that day on, I immersed myself in my work again. If she stayed late at work, I took the children with me to the workshop. I started teaching Danny what I did for a living and showed him some of my work. Wow, Dad, did you paint that? He said, looking at the tank of the Harley I had just finished. It's beautiful. That lifted my spirits. When she started nagging me about taking the kids to my dirty store, I told her that if she came home at a decent time once in a while, I wouldn't have to do that. That shut her up for a minute, but she just found something else to grumble about. We were rolling downhill fast. When she left on Saturday and didn't get home until after 8 o'clock, we had a huge fight. If it hadn't been for the kids coming crying into our bedroom, it probably would have gone on much longer. See what you've done? Now you've upset the kids, she shouted accusingly at me. I felt like hitting her. After that, I spent most of my weekends away from home. I would go to a car or motorcycle show and do whatever I could to attract new business. When I started doing experimental computer graphics, I added about 10% of my business. Sue kept me busy when I bought an Apple iMac and upgraded my software. It got to the point where I no longer cared what she did or didn't do. And don't even ask about my unhappy personal life. I took Danny to a 2-day regional motorcycle show for which I made over 50 new drawings. I had 7 custom-drawn tanks and 3 rear fenders. I made a couple drawings I was proud of and thought long and hard about how to present them to a particular group I knew would be there. With folder in one hand and my son in the other, I walked up to the baddest-looking bastard I could find. He was the president of the Warmonger Motorcycle Gang chapter. Danny's eyes were as big as dinner plates, and he kind of kept behind me. "Excuse me," I said, trying not to tap him on the shoulder. "My name is Steve, and I think I have something that might interest you." Just then, 2 big burly men stepped between us and told me unequivocally that it was time for me to leave. I wasn't going to give up so easily. Since most of the paint jobs on your bikes look like crap, I thought you might want to see what a good paint job might look like. When one of the participants pushed me away and told me to get away before I got hurt, I almost gave up. I just thought a man of your stature might like something on his bike that he could be really proud of. I gave him another glance, then turned my back to the group of 10 bikers who everyone thought were going to kill me and bury my body in the street in front of them. Then I heard, "Let me see what you have." I turned, walked through the group, and held out my folder to him. He flipped through the first 3 and smiled. The son of a bitch smiled. "Is that what you're doing?" I nodded and said I was in the design business myself. I knew which one caught his attention. It was a picture of a badass biker on the back of his custom Harley being pulled by 6 hot naked women. I was thankful Danny had never seen it. It was kind of like Santa's sleigh on steroids or drugs. Now everyone started looking at my drawings and giggling amongst themselves. I handed him a couple cards and told him I'd give him a great deal if he was interested. I thanked him for his time, and before I could leave, he held out his hand and thanked me. His name was Sid, not badass, killer, or mad dog as I had thought. With a terrified Danny in my arms, I walked back to the tent knowing that most people thought I was crazy and I was lucky to be alive. It took balls. Jesus Christ, you had to be fucking brave to do what you did there. You know you're alright, don't you? What were you thinking? My friend Tim pounced on me. Everyone, including me, was waiting for the explosion. "So you mean you wouldn't jump in the water to save me?" I replied, looking at him innocently. "I would have saved your son and told so you just went crazy and killed yourself. She'd probably be upset because she'd have to find someone else to look after the kids." I probably shouldn't have said that directly in front of Danny, but he was still coming around to what I'd done. That day I took away 3 tanks and one possibly fully painted bike. "Dad, did you know these people today?" asked Danny, sitting next to me on the way home. "It's just a couple of friends of mine I haven't seen in a while." "Why do you ask?" "One guy said we'd get shot if we talked to these bad people." "Well, did they shoot at us? Did they do us any harm?" "You see, you can't believe everything people say." "Dad, you saw all the tattoos on their arms, and even the women had lots of them all over their bodies," he said, looking at my arms. "Why don't you have any?" "Some of them were really cool." I was glad to see that Danny had recovered well. Dinner, on the other hand, hadn't exactly gone well. "Mom, you should have seen us," he said before I could stop him. "Dad just walked up to these guys and started talking to them. They were called warmongers. It was so cool, they had tattoos and everything." Sue looked at me, her eyes narrowed. "Steve, what the hell were you thinking?" "Nothing happened. See, we're still here. We weren't shot at, and we don't have any stab wounds. I just gave them a couple drawings I thought they might be interested in, that's all." "Who are you coming to tomorrow? The Hells Angels? Think about what you're doing for a change, especially with our son with you." "I'm trying to grow my business, if you don't mind," I said more than wryly. "Steve, your job is to watch the kids when I'm working. I thought we agreed I was the breadwinner of the family." "That was before you tried to cut off my balls and make me a eunuch. My business is just as important as yours, partnership or no partnership. So from now on, if you're going to be late, get yourself a babysitter if you don't like me babysitting." I walked out from behind the desk. I started to retrieve my balls. Sue wouldn't let me take Danny with me on Sunday. Something about me putting my son's life in danger. Things were slow on Sunday, and I was about to call it a day when I heard the roar of many motorcycles whizzing down the street. When they pulled up to my tent, I wasn't sure what was going to happen. "I've decided to take you up on your offer," Sid told me, getting off the bike. "I want the one with the 6 women pulling the motorcycle. But I want the front fender to depict a big-breasted blonde woman kneeling on her knees, and I want it to extend the entire length of the tank. And finally, on the back fender I want to see a brunette pictured from the back. Just make sure she has a nice round big ass." I was doing backflips in my brain. It wasn't cheap, but since I had already done all the work, I only had to worry about materials and labor. Eventually we agreed on a price, but Sid said he wouldn't pay a dime until it was finished. I agreed. "How long will it take?" "It'll take about 2 weeks, give or take a day or two. But I don't want you to see it before then, if you don't mind." He told me he'd drop his bike off at the store tomorrow morning. I was in. I never said a word about it to Sue. She treated me with all her saintliness, and I didn't give a shit. And no, I didn't get any great sex, in case you were wondering. We did have it from time to time, but now I was forcing Sue to be the initiator. I only turned her down once, saying I had a headache. She slammed the bathroom door with such force that she knocked the mirror off the bedroom wall. For the next 2 weeks I spent almost all my days and nights at my store. When Sue would sometimes call me about dinner, I would just tell her to eat without me. She would get angry, saying something about a family dinner, and then I would remind her of the last 2 years and how often she came home for dinner. Now that she was a babysitter, she could see what I was going through all those nights alone. I had a few problems, but I finished it with 1 day to spare. It looked so good, I didn't want to let it go. Tim and I took 1,000,000 pictures from every possible angle. "Damn, I wish I could show her at the regional show in Atlanta next week," I told him. "She'd take first place." Sid was there the next morning with a few of his buddies. "Just fucking awesome," were the first words out of his mouth as he circled around his bike, grinning from ear to ear. "Jesus fucking Christ, you weren't lying, were you?" "Shit, it looks great." He talked, non-stop, for about 5 minutes. "It's worth the $2,000 I'll have to pay, that fucking work of art." "I have a question for you," I said hesitantly. "What would you say if I told you I'd do this painting job for free if you'd do me one small favor?" "Depends who you want me to kill," he said, laughing along with his 2 friends. There's a bike show in Atlanta this Saturday, and I'd like to show off your bike. No way in hell, they don't love me in Atlanta. You don't have to be there yourself, just your bike. I'll paint it for free, and if you win, you get another $1,500. That got him thinking. You can have someone else write it and register it in your name, then you get credit and a check if you win. Do you think he has a chance? What do you think? He looked at the bike and smiled. Steve, let me think about it and get back to you, he said as he got on his bike and started it up. He could have told me to go to hell and just take his bike and there would have been nothing I could have done about it except cry and be left without $2,000, but I was hoping for something more. On Wednesday, my cell phone rang. A friend of mine is driving there in a car for me. I want you to meet them there and shine it up. I expect to take first place, if you know what I mean. That's all he said, because I knew what he meant. Steve, we need to talk, were Sue's first words Wednesday night. About what? I replied. What do you mean? About us, about how our marriage is working out. What marriage? I'm now legally bound to a workaholic who thinks her shit doesn't stink and doesn't respect me, I told her, not holding back this time. But you know what, I don't care anymore. I really did, but I wasn't going to tell her that. Maybe we could go away for the weekend and, rebuild the relationship. Sorry, I already have plans. How about next weekend? She didn't like that. What could be more important than our marriage? Funny, I remember asking the exact same question a year ago at some promotion dinner when I was trying to stick up for you. But that's right, I was cut off at the knees and told I was no better than a rough laborer. Well, that workaholic has better things to do than listen to a winner complain about how badly I treat her. I walked away from my shocked and angry wife. I let her go and got busy with what I needed to do for Saturday's show. I got there early and was surprised by who was riding on Sid's bike, one hot, tattooed woman. Are you Steve? She asked. Yes, and you are? Let's just say I'm a good friend of Sid's and leave it at that. I didn't prod her for details. He wants you to register it in your name, not his. Sid said he doesn't want or need to advertise or have this bike associated directly with him, if you know what I mean. I did and registered it in my name with no problem. They must have brought it to the show because it was as clean as when it left my store. It still needed a couple hours of work, but we had time. I had done my best, now it was up to the judges. There were probably about 1,000 spectators, and I knew some of the exhibitors, but I was shocked when one of the senior partners in Sue's firm approached us. Mr. Thomas, I said, extending my right hand as he approached me. Steve, this is Bill, he said to me, shaking my hand firmly. Now that's what I call painting. He walked around the bike, taking a few pictures. How long did it take you? 2 weeks, I replied, watching the judge rise with his clipboard. You said you did a good job, but I had no idea to what extent. Are Sue and the kids here with you? No, they all went home. I mean, I'm sorry about that dinner. I must have made a fool of myself. He looked at me and was silent for a few seconds. This probably wasn't the time or place, but I wish I had the courage to do what you did that night. That guy disgraced not only himself, but our firm as well. In fact, I owe you an apology, he told me. How about we settle the score and leave it at that? We shook hands again. Well, Steve, I hope you win and tell Sue I'm sorry I missed her. Your wife has a great future at our firm, unless she burns out. See if you can do anything for me? With those words he walked away. After the judging, all that was left to do was wait for the results. The girl who brought the bike to Atlanta had changed into an outfit that showed off all of her physical features, as well as all of her tattoos and piercings. She sat on the bike with more than one guy taking pictures. No one was surprised that my bike was the best in the show. However, the competition was very tough, not only in terms of coloring, but also in terms of the bikes themselves. I even regretted that we didn't register it in Sid's name. Who in their right mind would vote against him? When the fourth and third places were called, I held my breath. I didn't even look at the stage or the judge when second place was announced, but Sid's girl did. Holy shit, we won, she announced to the world. For a minute or two, I didn't understand anything, but then my brain exploded. I picked up the trophy and the check and posed by the bike for a million pictures with Sid's girlfriend. I handed out all the cards I had brought with me and wrote my name and phone number on 100 others. I was asked about a dozen questions about the bike itself and how it rides, but I passed most of them on to Sid's girlfriend, who posed and smiled both on and off the bike. "Someone wants to talk to you," she said, handing over her cell phone. "Hello, this is Steve." "Son of a bitch, looks like you were right, I heard we won," I heard Sid say. "Great fucking job. Tell Donna everything, and I'll see you Monday." He hung up. I finally got her name. I hung around for another hour or so and squeezed everything I could out of this win. I knew I'd probably get into at least 2 magazines because I'd seen press badges on several photographers. I gave Donna the check and the trophy and finally learned that she was Sid's little sister. At nearly 5 feet 9 inches tall and weighing about 50, she was far from anyone's child. The 5.5-hour drive from Atlanta felt like 20. I was strung out, tired, and hungry as hell. I stopped at Denny's and ate a Grand Slam breakfast, including 2 cups of coffee, before hitting the road again. When my phone rang just after 10:30, I jumped a mile because I was deep in thought. "Where are you?" asked Sue. "In about 45 minutes. Do you have anything to eat?" she asked, seeming almost concerned to me. "I stopped by Denny's, so don't worry. I'll be home around 11:30, give or take a half hour." "I'll wait," she replied. "Sue, go to bed, I'll see you in the morning," I said with a note of annoyance in my voice. "Well, drive carefully then." It was the nicest conversation I'd had in months. I ended up stopping once more for a bathroom break and another cup of coffee. I got home just after midnight, tired but still home. I took a quick shower and slid into bed. I could tell from her breathing that she was awake, but I didn't say anything, expecting her to start. She didn't start, and after a while we both fell asleep. Sunday morning I was told we were having a barbecue at her parents' house. Just fucking great, I don't need anything else, I thought to myself, but I didn't say anything. It was a pleasant enough evening until her father started ranting at the dinner table about something he knew next to nothing about. Everyone, as usual, tried to ignore him. Sue was talking to her mom, the kids had already finished and asked to be excused, so I was his only other person at the table. I was looking at the fancy tablecloth and china and everything else in the room when I finally got out of my seat and stood up. "Sally," I said, turning to Sue's mother, "I don't know how you managed to stay married to that arrogant son of a bitch for 40 years, but you sure earned your place in heaven with that. If I were him, I'd have put a pillow over his head and smothered his ass a long time ago." Everyone sat with their mouths open. "Sue, the kids and I are leaving in 2 minutes, with or without you," I told her, tossing my floral cloth napkin on the table. I wish I could say it was fun, but why lie? "You can't talk to me like that in my own house," her father growled, standing up and trying to kill me with a look. "You're right, that's why I don't plan on coming back here anymore." "I'm sorry, Sally, but a person can only take so much, family or not." "You're coming." "Sue?" I asked for the umpteenth time. She sat as if glued to the chair. "She's not going anywhere with a loser like you. Hell, if it wasn't for my daughter's job, you'd be living in a goddamn trailer." I begged her not to marry you. I told her you'd never amount to anything, and I was right, Hank puffed up his chest. "Sue is just like her old man, she knows what she wants and will get it no matter what." "Hank," I said, turning to her father, "then I feel sorry for both of you. You have all that, but what do you really have? A wife who only puts up with you because she likes the easy life and is afraid to go out on her own, and a daughter who will be bouncing around an empty house by herself when I dump her ass and take the kids with me. Then she'll really be just like you, single and married to her job." "Get out of my house," Hank shouted at me. "It would be my pleasure." I took the kids out of the living room and put them all in my wife's BMW 320i. "Sue, I'll leave the car at the house, and since you're not there very often, I'll email you the address so you don't get lost." I would have loved to burn rubber in their driveway, but her car didn't have that kind of range. "Why didn't Mom come with us?" asked Danny as soon as we got in the car. "She wanted to stay and visit your grandparents." Soon my phone rang, but I turned it off. It's not safe to talk and drive, I told the kids and threw the phone on the passenger seat. The kids and I took enough clothes for a couple days. I explained that we were going to visit my parents for a few days. I had a nice car in my garage, but I decided to take my work truck. It was mine, it was paid for, and it suited my lifestyle. Mom, you're having guests over for a couple days, is that okay with you? Honey, Mom asked with a question in her voice, what did you do this time? Mom, why do you always assume I'm the one who did something wrong? I know I'm not perfect, but this time it wasn't me, at least not really me. Well, come on over and we'll work something out. Mom and Dad's house was small, not at all like Sue's parents or even like Sue and me. The kids slept on air mattresses in the living room. I slept in my old boy's R. Boom. When I told Mom what I had done, she only shook her head. Dad smiled. You lasted a lot longer than I would have if I were you. I only wish I had been there. I could have added something of my own. Listen to both of you. You're talking about your wife's father. And while we may not like the man, he is her father. You don't take care of him? Mom, he's an asshole. I can't believe I waited this long to tell him what I really think of him. What about Sue? What are you going to do with her? She asked, standing with her arms crossed over her chest. Mom, I'm done with her. Everything is me, and I'm tired of it. I went out of my way to make her life easier, but in doing so, I lost her respect. She'll be much happier without me, and I'll be much happier without her. Son, do you really believe that? I nodded affirmatively, but I wasn't entirely sure. You know, in God's eyes you will always be married. Well, it will only be in His eyes. Hopefully I can find a way to get custody of the kids. My father took this one. Steve, this isn't going to be easy. You can be a good father, but the court sides with the mother 75% of the time. The best you can hope for is joint custody. There was a lot I didn't know, but I realized my father was probably right, especially with her father's money. By this time, Hank was probably on the phone with his lawyer, laying out a plan to take me out. I was totally screwed and I knew it. Pride can be a good trait as well as a bad one, as it was in my case. Add to that a mile-wide stubbornness and you have the makings of a real disaster, which is exactly what happened. I looked back over the past year and the only word that came to mind was sucker. Sue tried to call me all Sunday night, but she was the last person I wanted to talk to. On Monday, I took the kids to school and even drove around the neighborhood to pick up the kids I usually drove to school. I mentally marked that I would call them tonight because today was the last day I would be bugging everyone. I pushed my business to the back burner and it was time to do something for myself. Sid was waiting for me when I pulled up in front of my store. What the fuck? What do you have, a bank watch or something? He joked. I wasn't in the best mood, but I wasn't going to piss this man off. Well, I told you your bike would place high. I was hoping for a win, but at this show I would have been fine with second place, I told him. Did you see the size of the trophy? Also, your sister got a check for first place. That's exactly what I wanted to talk to you about. Maybe we should go inside, he said, pointing to the door. I unlocked the door, turned on the light, and grabbed 2 chairs. The check is made out to you, and I want you to keep it. You did the work, and it's only right that you get paid for it. I've got a hell of a paint job, and to anyone who asks me about it, I'll tell you where I got it. 2 of my brothers have seen your work and want you to do a custom paint job on their bikes. Not as complicated, but still something nice. I gave them your card, so expect a call. I'd like to keep this all confidential if you don't mind. We don't want people to know what we do, if you know what I mean? No problem. Just ask them to pay me in cash and it won't happen. You seem like a nice guy, you do a great job, but you're not afraid of us like most people are. Why is that? This is nothing more than business. You have your life, I have mine, and if we can help each other, so much the better. He smiled, we shook hands, and 2 minutes later he was gone. At least I got more out of the deal than I expected. For the next 3 days, I kept my cell phone turned off and let the answering machine take all calls from the office. Every night when I went to my mom's house, she yelled at me for not calling Sue. "Steve, you're being an idiot. Call your wife and deal with this, you have 2 kids, remember?" I knew I had 2 kids, but my sex glands had almost fully recovered and I wasn't about to go back to being the submissive Steve of the last year. If Sue was such a big girl, let her deal with the crap I'd been doing for the last couple years. It went on like that for about 2 weeks. I called the kids at 3:30 and had to maneuver between one babysitter and another. They said they missed me and that their mom was mad all the time. What else was new? They would ask when I was coming home and I would say I didn't know, but that I loved them to death. I was in the middle of wet sanding the gas tank when a girl walked in the door. She was short, pretty, and looking for someone named Steve. I had been getting a lot of requests lately and my dance card was full. "I'm Steve, what can I do for you today?" I asked with a smile. "You've been served," she said with an almost apologetic expression on her face and walked out the door. I hadn't expected that, at least not so soon. I tossed it on the desk and went back to work. I had 3 cases to prepare today before I left, and it looked like it was going to be a long night. I didn't finish my work until 11 o'clock. I was just finishing my coffee when my mom walked into the kitchen. "Good morning, dear. What time did you get home last night?" "Too late," was all I said. "Well, try to get home a little earlier tonight. I plan to make meatloaf with all the necessary additives, and it's no better than reheated in the microwave." "I'll try," I said, kissing her forehead. I got home almost on time, but the next 3 nights were just as late, if not later, than the previous night. I pretty much lived in my store and made sure I always had a change of clothes and a fridge full of beer. I suppose you are wondering if I looked in the newspapers, but I never opened them. I knew she had at least one high-profile lawyer, maybe 2, and I had enough money to pay expenses and set aside something for the kids. Over the next 2 weeks, I received 2 more packages from the same law office. However, I noticed one thing: the parcels were getting heavier and heavier. "When were you going to tell me?" Mom asked me this question as I walked through the door. "What can I tell you?" "On divorce." "Oh, that's probably what's in those big manila envelopes I used to get," I said, pulling a cold Corona out of the fridge. "You didn't open them?" "Mom, what's the point? If she wants a divorce, she's going to get it whether I want it or not. Her asshole father can hire the best lawyers in town, so if that's what she wants, I'd be a fool to resist." "Didn't you at least try to talk to her?" "Mom, what's the point?" I did my best, but apparently it wasn't good enough for her. I'm tired of trying to be Mr. Perfect. Now it's my time. "Okay, what about your 2 children? Don't you think Danny and Kim deserve a say in what happens?" "I talk to them a couple times a week. Don't I know it's going to be hard on them? But I think it's going to be even harder for them if we keep living the way we've been living." Mom knew I was right. I didn't want a divorce, but I didn't have a choice anymore. Sue had chosen her job and her father over me, and I couldn't live like that. The next night I was taking a break when the phone rang. I wasn't going to answer it, and I wanted the machine to pick it up, but I thought, what the hell, I can't hide from her forever. "Sue, what do you want?" I asked in an almost irritated tone. "Steve, I know you got the papers, you were supposed to respond in 72 hours, she said in an equally irritated tone. "I've been very busy lately, and I guess I haven't had a chance to look at them yet." "You haven't even looked at them yet?" "Steve, it's been over 3 weeks. And what are you trying to say?" "Look, if you want a divorce, just do it. I'm not going to fight it. Just let me know when it's over and when I can see my kids, that's all. Don't you even care about us? Don't you even miss me?" I could see she was crying. Think about it, Sue. How many times in the last year have you been home for dinner? And when you were physically there most of the time, mentally you were somewhere else. The kids and I were living our lives without you. You were making money, I was playing mom, and the kids were deprived of having 2 parents. I don't want to fight anymore. I'm just tired of it all. Do what you want, and like I said, just let me know when it's officially over. I knew she was crying, I could hear it in the background. Did I still love her? Maybe I did, but it had been so long since we'd been happy. Maybe we could try again, but like I said, I couldn't do it on my own. Sometime during the next 5 minutes I heard her start to say something, but then she stopped. Sue, if you don't mind, can I talk to the kids? Steve, I'm not at home, I'm still at work. There you go, nothing changes, does it? I hung up the phone and called my kids. During the following week, 3 events occurred that had a tremendous impact on the rest of my life. 2 of them I did not learn about until much later. Sue joined her mother and father for dinner in the formal dining room of her parents' home. Steve really said that? Her father asked. It'll be like fish in a barrel. We'll take everything the little asshole has and maybe get child support from you, he said, laughing loudly. Hank, will you at least shut up for a change? Sally shouted, slapping both hands on the table. Sue and Hank looked at her in utter amazement. Hank, if I didn't have such a high tolerance for assholes after 40 years of marriage, I would have divorced you a long time ago. Mother, exclaimed the astonished Sue. Sue, my only regret is that I didn't spank you when you started acting like your father. You have become a self-centered, arrogant, selfish woman and I am almost ashamed to call you my daughter. Hank stood up and shouted, Sally, that's enough. Hank, sit down, if only you can get your EAD out of your damn ass. Honey, believe it or not, your father is wrong about Steve. He's not the one who got lucky in your marriage, you are. You should have been kissing his ass every day for what he did for you, but you, like your father, were blind to what was going on around you. This man put his career on the back burner to be able to support you the way he did. And when he stood up for you, you unleashed a barrage of anger on him and made it seem like he had done something wrong. You and your father, as sad as it is to admit, are molded from the same material. Like you, your father was never around. How I got pregnant with you is still a mystery to me. Hell, I thought I'd have to ask his brother to take care of me because he was never home. So divorce him, rake him over the coals, but he was right about one thing. When the kids get a little older, they'll leave you for him and all you'll be left with is a big empty house, a great job and distant memories to keep you warm. Don't make the same mistake I did. So, I've lost my appetite and am going to my room alone, she said, looking at her husband. The 2 of them looked after Sally as she left the room. I think your mother is drunk. Dad, she hasn't even been drinking, Sue said, still in shock at what had happened. 2 days later, the second shoe dropped. From the corporate office in Atlanta came an email from Mr. William Thomas, one of the senior partners. I want to congratulate one of our junior partners on her husband's first-place finish at the Atlanta Regional Bike Show last month. Sue's husband, Steve, did one of the most outstanding paint jobs I have ever seen. Even though it may be a bit risky for some, it was nonetheless a true work of art and he is to be congratulated on the job. The board is even considering sponsoring him at next year's Atlanta Auto Show and having him decorate the company logo. Attached are photos of the winning artwork. However, if you are offended by the naked images, please do not open them. Sue stared at the screen and didn't even blink. She opened the attachment and looked at the pictures it took. If she didn't know any better, she could have sworn that the girl on the front fender bender bore more than a casual resemblance to her, but with much larger breasts. Connie walked into Sue's office and closed the door. He doesn't know about you divorcing Steve, does he? Connie, no one in this office knows anything but you. What are you going to do now? Connie, I don't even know what to do about my own divorce. I thought I had all the answers, and now I'm not even sure I do. If he would just talk to me for once. If I were in his shoes, I'd just go to him in person. That way he wouldn't be able to hang up on me. I don't know what to say anymore, even if he would talk to me. Tell him you were a real asshole and you'll fuck him until he stops walking, that always works for me. I think it's going to take more than that this time, Sue said as she closed her briefcase. As I said, 3 things happened. By special delivery, I received 2 more packages. How much more paperwork does it take to turn over the words I agree? However, they were not from Sue's attorney. The first one was from Easy Rider magazine. In it, I saw a layout and an article that would be published next month about the Atlanta show. The article had a picture of me with the trophy and a picture of Donna on the bike. It was titled Beauty and the Beast. The article said that the warmonger motorcycle was the best at the show and even called Donna's name. It seems more than one person recognized who she was. I was totally screwed. The article from Iron Horse magazine was pretty much the same. Both talked about what a great job I had done, but mentioned that the bike belonged to a member of the warmonger motorcycle gang. If Donna had just stayed in the background, no one would have ever known, but now the whole world could read about it. So much for keeping the secret, and I knew Sid wouldn't be happy. I decided to leave early and was getting ready to close up when Sue's BMW pulled into the parking lot. Damn, what else could go wrong today? Steve, if you have a minute, I'd like to talk to you. She was wearing a three-piece suit and looked both sexy and professional. I'm impressed. I thought it would take at least a couple more months for everything to be finalized. I guess when you have money, there are no limits, I told her sarcastically, trying to get the first shot before she told me how badly she screwed me in court. Can we talk like two adults, for a change, without all these shots? Sue, come in, that way I can get the lube ready so it won't hurt so much. I continued to attack and she frowned. That was a joke. I remember a time when you thought it was funny too. She cast a glance at my desk. You still haven't opened them, have you? No, no reason. Do you want something to drink? I have water and maybe a Coke, but it won't be diet. Do you have any beer? That took me by surprise. 2 Coronas coming up. I walked over to my cooler and held one out to her. I took 2 big sips of the other before I spoke. Now that we've gotten the pleasantries out of the way, what do you want? I've stopped the divorce proceedings, she announced, taking a small sip from the bottle. And what does that have to do with me? I've moved on and I'm quite happy with my life right now, I replied, trying to regain my edge. My business is booming, my work is coming out in 2 magazines next month, and for once things are going my way. In other words, you don't miss our old life? Me and the kids? The kids do, you don't, I lied. How can I miss some self-centered bitch who was never around? Someone who demanded to wear the pants in the family, but who didn't have the dick or balls to back it up. I guess I deserve this and probably a lot more, but that doesn't mean I didn't love you, that I don't still love you, she whispered, tearfully taking another sip of beer. How can you love someone you don't consider your equal or respect? I respected you, I just kind of took advantage of you. Like what? Like what? Who the fuck are we kidding? You tried to walk all over me, and for a long time I let you. I thought to keep the peace in the family, I should just suck it up. Then you tried to cut my balls off, and probably would have if I hadn't finally put you and your fucking father in your place. Let's leave my father out of this, he has his own problems right now. Calm down, my heart, I said with a broad smile on my face. Now I ask you again, what do you want? To try again. No way, I've been through this before. Sue, you have no idea what it takes for the kind of marriage I'm looking for. The days of me being your personal servant are over, I was close to screaming at her. Can't you show me how to become the kind of wife you want? Can't we at least try? I think you still care for me, how much, I don't know, but what harm can it do if we try again? If it doesn't work out, well, then we'll join the ranks of also been married and move on. Sue, you have no idea what you're asking. I'm never going back to what we had, I said, for the first time really thinking about it. Everything will be done on my terms. Our terms, she replied immediately. I'm not going to lose myself in this either. We do this as equal partners or nothing. I started to think it over. Well, it's time for me to pick up the kids. Dinner is at 6:30, if you're interested. The kids would like to see you, but it's your choice, no pressure. Yeah, sure, no pressure, I thought to myself. She took 2 more sips and set the bottle aside. She walked over, kissed me on the cheek, and walked to her car. She still had a great ass that even a business suit couldn't hide. So, my curiosity and my cock took over. I walked in at 6:20 and said, let's eat. Sue and I hardly said anything as the children told me every detail of their lives since they were born. I guess, not knowing if or when they would see me again, they were sure I knew everything about them. I told Sue I would help with the dishes, but she replied that the kids came first. We finished with chores and I got them ready for bed, or should I say I wrestled them until they were tired by 9 o'clock. Kissed each one and turned out the light. Sue sat in the kitchen sipping her wine. As wild as they are, I don't know how you got them to go to bed. I did what every good father does, I threatened them. She smiled. So, have you come to any decisions? She asked, expecting me to say I wanted a divorce. I have a list of conditions that must be met before I say yes or no. I pulled a full-page list out of my pocket. I printed them because you probably wouldn't be able to read my handwriting. I handed her the sheet across the table. She smiled as she read the first few items, and when she got to the most difficult ones, she looked shocked. I agree to everything except the last point. They're my parents, and even though you and my father don't look at each other, she started before I interrupted her. I can't stand that son of a bitch. Like I said, although you and my father don't agree on everything, he is the grandfather of our children and I will not cut them out of his life. You don't have to come with me, but I will let the kids visit. And if he's not allowed in our house yet, I'll go along with that. There was nothing unreasonable about my circumstances, just common sense that most married couples take for granted. But we were not like most other married couples, at least not yet. Are you staying the night or are you going home to your mom? Sue asked quietly, but I could see in her eyes that she hoped I would stay. You want me to stay? What do you say? She replied. Well, then ask me, why don't you? What do you mean ask? I shouldn't ask my husband to spend the night with his wife. Faye. Sue, we haven't been real husband and wife for over a year now. I think you viewed them more as a master and slave relationship. So I'll say it again, if you want me to stay, all you have to do is ask. Women can be so stupid sometimes. Damn it. All right. Stephen Moore, would you like to spend the night with your wife, Susan Moore? She said this with genuine seriousness and just a hint of sarcasm. See, that was so hard? Yes, I'd love to spend the night, thanks for asking. Asshole, she said under her breath, and it wasn't said in a nice way. Since most of my clothes were still in the house, I showered, shaved and found something suitable to wear. I half expected Sue to join me in the shower, but figured she was still a little annoyed with me. Well, we had plenty of time when she went to bed to renew our acquaintance. From my spot on the bed, I could see her in the bathroom. She had washed and flossed her teeth, and when I saw what she was wearing, my heart stopped beating fast. She was wearing her "don't even ask me about sex" outfit. It was an overwaisted t-shirt, socks, and granny panties. Her hair was tied at the top of her head in an old lady bundle. What? She asked, seeing the look on my face. Nothing, I said, rolling over onto my back and giving her my backside. I guess I wasn't expecting great sex tonight, or even a blowjob, but the least she could do was tease me a little. Nothing seemed to have changed, at least not yet. Look, we have some real issues to work out before we go back to doing something we both enjoy. I don't want you back on call or because you have an itch that needs scratching. I want my husband back and you want a new wife and it's not going to happen overnight. So if you want a quick fuck, here it is, she said as she lay down on her back and spread her legs. But if you're looking for more, like me, it's going to take more than one dinner at home. She kissed me and I hugged her until the kids started bouncing around the bed in the morning. My kids were happy to have breakfast with me again. Can you take the kids to school this morning? No problem, my pleasure, sweetheart. At least for once, she asked. Don't worry, I won't be late today. I'm planning on picking up some Chinese on my way home from work, if that's okay with you? I don't have any other plans for tonight, so that should do it. I didn't like the look in her eyes, but I ignored it. This was going to be a lot harder than I thought. Looks like we're going to have to start over. As she kissed me on the lips and started to walk away, I shouted after her. I can get more affection from a prostitute on 9th Street. When Kim asked what a prostitute was, Sue came up to me, kissed me, and ran her tongue over me. Now that's what I call a goodbye kiss. You'd probably have to pay at least $20 for one of those, I said, teasing her. She wasn't in the mood for jokes. Like I said, it wasn't going to happen overnight. When the kids left for school, I opened my store and there were already 2 messages on my machine. One was regarding the status of a job I had started, and the second simply told me to leave an open spot for him for about 9:30. He didn't give his name, so I figured it was someone who needed an estimate for a job. I heard motorcycles over the compressor of my airbrush. I pulled over, cleaned the lines and waited for them to arrive. Jesus Christ. The first guy was big enough to cause an eclipse of the sun if he walked in front of it, and his friend, who was a head shorter, was almost as wide. "What can I do for you guys?" I asked. "I think Sid told you we'd be in the neighborhood," the shorter one spoke up. They weren't wearing their colors, but they looked formidable without them. "Right," I said, regaining my composure. "What kind of painting are you interested in? Why don't you show us what you can do?" The taller one asked. "Why don't you come over here and I'll show you all the drawings I've done today?" I invited them both over to the computer and clicked on the drawing file. "Start here and just click on the down arrow, it will take you to the next drawing. I think I have about 125 of them. If you need me, I'll be near the paint booth," I said, pointing over my shoulder. I was applying clear coat to the front fender when I was called out. The second time, I was clearing the lines. Wiping my hands, I walked over to where they were sitting. "You did a good job," he said, pointing to the image on the screen. It was a picture of a tall red-headed girl with a snake coiled around her. "I want her to be blonde and with big tits." "No problem, I can handle it." His buddy just wanted a custom paint job. No pictures, no flames, just metallic blue and black. Thank goodness I got the easy option for a change. I quoted them a price and none of them flinched. I probably could have gotten more. I told them I would do everything one at a time, and that I needed a week to paint and about 5 days just to image the tank. If you just want to drop off the tank, I can do it faster, and if you want to disassemble and reassemble the bike, I'll reduce the price by 25%. Both agreed to these options. Now came the hard part. I need to get in touch with Sid or Donna. Some business has come up that I think he should be made aware of, I told the 2 of them and watched them look at each other. He can call or come to the store, but I need to talk to him, and as soon as possible. Just tell him it has to do with the show in Atlanta. I gave them each a card. Sid probably wouldn't care, but on the other hand, I didn't want him to be left out. Especially if he found out I knew about it beforehand. Dinner was nice and the kids weren't so wild tonight. Since it was a Friday night, they were allowed to go to bed later and we all watched a movie together in the living room. I liked Harry Potter myself, and it was my kid's favorite. Sue, I think, thought he was a teenager, but still seemed at least somewhat interested. By 10 o'clock the movie was over, we put away the snacks, and everyone headed upstairs. I was betting 10-1 that Sue would come out in something much sexier than last night. Did I want sex with her? Hell yes, but I was going to make her ask me for it. I had started wearing a new type of protective glove at the store, so my hands were much cleaner now. They still weren't as smooth as a baby's, but they were already much different from what they used to be. When she caught up to my bed and waited for me in the evening, I was a little surprised. I had pulled out the latest issue of the Iron Horse and was looking at the clipping featuring the girl on the motorcycle of the month when she started looking at me. In the nearly 10 years I'd known Sue, she'd only been the aggressor once, and that was after a party when she'd had too much to drink. It was at my old friend's house, and we were one of 10 couples. Sue, as always, was Miss Prim and Proper, especially in what she wore. When 2 of my buddies' wives started trying to make her jealous, she started drinking even more. She never said a word about what was going on, but instead drank the hell out of it. On the way home, she lashed out at me, asking if I thought she was as sexy as the 2 whores that had been around me all night. "Baby, you are my wife, the mother of my children, and I love you to death," I told her. When she said something inarticulate about their big boobs, I laughed. When I told her she had the cutest tits in the world, she seemed a little upset. They may not be the biggest tits in the world, but they're firm and I don't have to wear a bra if I don't want to, and she pulled off her bra. See, they even bounce when I do this, and she started bouncing on her knees on the front seat. The only problem was that the driver in the next car was also getting a great view as he was driving next to us at the same speed. I laughed, he laughed, and gave me a thumbs up before finally driving off. I carried her into the house, undressed her, and we both hopped in the shower. If you put that magazine away, maybe we can fool around a little tonight, she said, moving over to me. She was wearing a short top and almost see-through bikini panties, and, best of all, no socks like last night. Jokes have their time and place, but the bedroom is usually not that place, and when your wife is making eyes at you, it's definitely not the right time. She and I were already chatting, so I decided to make a little joke. I must have been bitten by a stupid bug to do something so stupid. "Oh Donna, that feels so good," I whispered in her ear. She stopped and looked at me with a shocked expression and I grinned stupidly. "Sue, it was a joke," I told her. Okay, she didn't see the humor in it, as she slammed the pillow over my head not once, but at least 3 times. Then, gritting her teeth, she clamped down on me. "You son of a bitch, who the hell is Donna?" I tried again to explain that it was just a joke, but now she was already red in the face. "This is Donna," I said, pulling out one of the manila envelopes lying on my bed. Beauty and the Beast. Sue recognized the motorcycle from Bill's letter from Atlanta, but none of his pictures showed Donna. She was there in full view of the world. "Is that what you were doing in Atlanta? Picked up some hooker at a bike show?" "Honey, that's the motorcycle owner's sister," I said as she studied the photo, even turning on the overhead light to get a better look at it. "Do you like women like that? More than me?" Like I said, some men at a certain point in their lives just lose their heads. Sue, think about it. I married you, didn't I? I can't say she's not interesting to look at, but I'm in love with you. However, if you get a tattoo here or on her," I said, touching her breasts and ass, "you'll look very sexy." "In your dreams, mister. I like this body the W. It is, and if I don't, I can think of 10 or 20 guys who would love to see what I have under my work clothes." She handed it back to me, and more. "So, shall we try again or do you have any other stupid comments you'd like to make?" "I need to work in the store for about an hour this morning," I informed Sue on Saturday during breakfast. "I need to get the 2 tanks ready so they can be taken down on Monday morning. Why don't we all go this morning and then head to the mall when you're done? I haven't seen you work in ages, and it's stupid to drive there and then drive back when the mall is on the other side of town." I wasn't about to object. I was hand sanding 2 gas tanks when I heard motorcycles pull up. Sue was strutting around the office and Kim and Danny were playing games on my computer when Sid walked in the door, no smile on his face. I brought 2 magazine layouts to the store and didn't know how to break the news to him. I walked over to him. "Good morning, Sid," I said uncertainly. "I've heard of this before, but I understand you have actual magazine layouts." I walked over to the table by my desk, picked up both envelopes and held them out to him. "Jesus fucking Christ," he said softly. Just at that moment, Sue came out of the study. Walking to the door, he opened it and shouted, "Donna, get your ass in here." Donna burst into the room, dressed in jeans and leather, showing off more than just her skin. I watched Sue, trying to figure out what was going on. "You stupid bitch, you just had to get in the pictures, didn't you? The whole fucking world is going to see this. Everywhere I go, people will know because you couldn't get your tits off my bike." Sue was now standing next to me and looking at the 2 of them. "Sid, you don't have another bike," Donna shouted back at him. "Okay, what am I supposed to do with this damn bike now? Anyone who sees it will be looking for me," he waved her off. "I don't need the fucking notoriety that will now accompany a motorcycle." "Why don't you sell it to us?" said Sue, watching their argument. "Sell the bike to my husband and he'll tell both magazines that it belongs to him, not you. That way you'll keep your privacy and we'll have something to show at the shows." "Sue, please stay out of this." I was surprised at what she had just suggested. "How much could he be worth? 10 to 15,000? "Honey, I only got 25 for the setup," Sid snapped back. "Well, we'll give you 25 and Steve will do another custom paint job on any of your other bikes for free. But this time we won't advertise what we're doing. Everyone looked at Sue. It's a good business deal for everyone. Everyone gets something different, and no one is left out. I noticed that our children were standing next to their mother, or rather, slightly behind her. I wasn't sure how this was going to play out. I liked the idea, I liked the idea of buying his motorcycle, but I wasn't sure what Sid thought of the idea. Can you create something similar to what you did last time? Whatever you want, I said with a smile on my face. Sue started talking to Donna about something. It took over an hour to work out all the details and figure out how the money and papers would change. Eventually, I would have to work out something special to compensate for the problem Donna had created. Does it hurt? Donna asked my daughter Kim, touching the tattoos on her stomach. A little, she said with a smile. You have lots of them and my mommy doesn't have any. Kim tried to lift Sue's shirt and Donna started laughing. If you want, I'll take your mommy with me and we'll put a whole bunch of pretty ones on her tummy. I could see Sue's eyes from across the room. This was not going to happen, at least not in my lifetime. Finished negotiating, Sid rode off with Donna on another motorcycle. I rolled the new addition to the family and just stared at him. He was mine. I don't see anything special about this bike except your coloring, she said, putting her foot on her leg. It was a custom scoop with a rigid frame and stiff tail. It had a Springer front end with a slope of about 39 degrees. There were 3 spoke wheels with California handlebars front and rear. The only gauges on it were a tachometer and speedometer, but the high bars bothered me. I only rode the bike with them once, and after about a half hour my arms started to get awfully tired. The passenger seat was nothing more than a toilet mat attached to the rear fender. And it was entirely mine. Look, Mom's picture, Kim said, pointing to the girl on the front fender. No, honey, that's not Mommy, Sue said as she looked at the naked woman in just a thong on the wing. Then she looked again. Oh shit. I was dead meat. Sure, the brown hair was longer, and Sue definitely didn't have the attributes of that girl, but Kim was right, it had her face on it. I used an old photo of Sue and embellished it. Is that how you see me in your twisted imagination? Is that what you would like me to look like? She asked. I think I'd leave the straps on. Sue couldn't take her eyes off the photo and finally recognized that it did look sexy, in a slutty sort of way. Little by little we worked our way back together. I worked more on my business and she cut back on her hours. Was everything perfect? Not at all, but at this point neither of us were giving up. Thursday night Sue announced that the kids would be spending the weekend with her parents, something about amusement parks and the beach. I need you to get home on time because you're taking me to dinner tonight at a new restaurant. Hell, the last thing I wanted to do was get dressed for dinner at the end of the week. However, I pulled myself together, smiled, and told her that I would be honored to escort her to dinner, maybe with a dose of sarcasm, but also with a wide smile on my face. There was no way I wanted to test fate tonight, especially since it would be a kid-free weekend. I'd been riding my new bike to and from work almost every day, and today was no exception. I filled up on the way home and everyone around me admired the bike and especially the paint job. I always kept my business cards with me because Sue had found a way to write the bike off completely as an expense. I pulled into the garage, walked into the kitchen and almost had a heart attack from what I saw. Standing in front of me was the sexiest motorcycle mom I'd ever seen. Long brown hair tied back in a ponytail, denim shorts that were high enough to hide her jewelry, knee-length leather boots, and a top that only covered the essentials. She had more tattoos than most badass bikers. She was sipping a Corona, but the best part was that she was standing right in front of me in my own kitchen. I walked over to her, took the beer and took a long sip, then wrapped my arms around her and kissed her. She slid her tongue down my throat, saying she knew other tricks with her tongue. Did it feel as good for you as it did for me? Better, I said, kissing her again and tossing the hairpiece on the dresser. How long do henna tattoos last? A couple more days, depending on how often you wash them. Well, they do look sexy. Great job on the boobs, by the way. How do you maintain them? They're built right into the cover. You can find the craziest things online if you know where to look, she said, giving me another kiss. Did you see the way people were looking at us today? I thought a few guys were going to fight you for me. They'd have a hell of a fight, I said with a smirk. Not so slutty next time. You're supposed to be my girlfriend, not some whore off the street. Maybe next time I'll get someone to take a picture of us and send it to Bill in Atlanta. Over my dead body. Don't forget, tomorrow is dress-up night for the senior partners in my office. No rudeness, no dirt, and lots of spit glitter. I think one good turn deserves another. We're a couple again, and Sue's gonna give me a boob job? No way in hell. But like I said, we're happy, and we're both working our asses off for a change. We're back to where we started all those years ago, and we've brought back the magic that our marriage was missing. We now know what is truly important in our lives, and we make family decisions together for the good of the family. Whether we can do that, I have no doubt, especially after she told me she would quit her job if she had to choose between the two of us. And now when my friends ask what I see in her, I say I see a loving wife and mother, and underneath the T-suit, a badass biker girl. They think I'm crazy, and they're probably right, but I wouldn't change a thing by bringing back a woman who couldn't tell the difference between a fair and a car show.